Hi, everybody. So I see you all on Zoom and out there in Radio Land. I just want to tell everybody before we start that we will take call-ins, and the phone number is 845-429-1700. I'm Susan Luss, the co-director of the Parkinsons Wellness Project, and this is our show, Learn to Move, Move to Learn. We're a nonprofit organization based in Rockland County, and we help people with Parkinson's and their families bring education, awareness, and understanding that there's so much that you can do when you're living with Parkinson's. It's a challenge, just like everything in life is a challenge. So you're gifted with more challenge, which means you could rise even further. So today, I know Alex Tressor will be joining us from Providence, Rhode Island. He's not here yet, but he will be. And we have a fantastic guest speaker today. And I am so thrilled that we found you, Kelly. I'm going to introduce Kelly Morrow. Kelly is a registered dietitian nutritionist specializing in Parkinson's. She's coming to us very early in the morning, all the way from Seattle, Washington. And I met her, if anybody knows, through Dr. Lori Mishley, who has been an inspiration for us. And Dr. Lori said to me, we are bringing on a special registered dietitian nutritionist, and when she comes, you're going to know her. So we are happy to welcome Kelly Morrow. And Kelly, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll hear what we need to do from you.
Great, thank you. It's really great to be here. So I'm Kelly Morrow. I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a dietitian for about 22 years, and I started out my career working in Parkinson's disease. And then I have spent the last 20 years teaching at Bastyr University. So I've been teaching in the nutrition and exercise science department. I also edit a nutrition textbook called Cross and Mahan's Food in the Nutrition Care Process. And I've done a variety of different research projects over the years, and committees and other types of nutrition projects. So I've been really passionate about food and nourishment for a long time, and also education is a big passion of mine. So I started out working in Parkinson's. I've worked in Parkinson's, more in a generalized clinic for many, many years, and now I've joined Seattle Integrative Medicine, so I'm working pretty closely with Dr. Lori Mishley, and I'm on another kind of steep learning curve with everything that she's doing, but it's really exciting, and I feel like there's a lot of synergy with the work that I've been doing over the past 22 years as well.
So I want to tell everybody, before we delve into a few of the questions that we have that we'd like you to answer, is that Kelly and the Parkinson's Wellness Project is planning a workshop in the fall from October 24th to November 28th. It's going to be a 6-week workshop. It's going to be a 90-minute class once a week for 6 weeks. And we'll tell you a little bit about it. You'll be able to sign up in a couple of weeks, and we expect to learn a lot from you, Kelly. So just to start off today, to give everybody a little taste of who you are and how you can help us, tell us, what are some of the foods that help support brain health, which we need, and are associated with slower progression of PD?
As I mentioned, I'm really passionate about nutrition, and also about just the synergy of the way that different foods work. And there are so many ways that foods can benefit the brain, and they can benefit the rest of the body. We want to really take a look at this from a holistic perspective. That's really a specialty of mine. I've been working in the field of integrative nutrition for many, many years. And so when I think about foods that support the brain, I think about different types of foods that might have a neuroprotective effect and also an anti-inflammatory effect. These are two aspects of food that we can really focus on. And so, some of them are foods like berries. Berries are in season right now. There's so many of them that are around. They have flavonoids, things like anthocyanins. These are really protective to the neurons. And so what happens is, many times when we eat these foods, we absorb these nutrients and they get into our bloodstream. Some of them are able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and they can help reduce inflammation, and they can also protect those neurons from any type of damage that can happen to them. So foods like berries, turmeric is another one. Turmeric, I don't know if people are eating turmeric regularly. It's incredibly neuroprotective. It also has an anti-inflammatory effect for the little organelles in our cells called mitochondria. And those are kind of the powerhouses, help with the energy within our cells and within our body. The other thing turmeric can do is it helps to bind iron. And we know that having excess iron is something that is associated perhaps with progression of Parkinson's. So turmeric, anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, protects the energy centers in our cells. Lots and lots of research on turmeric and Parkinson's and other inflammatory conditions.
You know what's very interesting is that I think we live in a society that we want everything to happen fast, and we just want to take a pill. But you're saying if we eat blueberries, if we eat strawberries, if we have some turmeric on our rice or wherever we're, or in a drink, these things can help us.
Yes.
And it has to get into our psyche. We have to make that a habit.
Yeah, it's the original design, right? The way that we would get these types of nutrients and protective compounds is through our diet. When you brought up the blueberries, it reminded me of this conference that I was at. It was at the Office of Dietary Supplements a few years back. And there was a social mixer afterwards, and I was talking with some of the scientists who were studying dietary supplements. And there was this really interesting conversation where this group was studying those anthocyanins in blueberries. And the thing that's interesting about these is that if you isolate them, if you take one out of the food, it's actually a little bit harder to absorb because we have these different compounds in our gut and our liver that look for these kind of types, these compounds that we ingest in our food, and they'll just take them out. They'll remove them because they sometimes are seen as maybe something foreign to the body. But when you eat them as a whole food, there's so many, right? Like you might take one anthocyanin in a pill, but if you eat a blueberry, then there's hundreds of different types. And then it sort of overwhelms the system. So it get absorbed really easily that way. And so, if you have turmeric, but you also have coriander, and you also have black pepper, and you have ginger, like think about a traditional curry. You have so many of these compounds that are protective and beneficial. It's almost like, imagine like, in ancient times, like storming the castle, right? Like the whole group that would come in, like if there was just one or two people, they wouldn't be able to get in. But if it was a whole group, then they can. So that's kind of how it works. And that's why whole food is so important. And I just remember talking to that scientist and going, yeah, when we just isolated the flavonoids, it just didn't absorb very well. But the one that absorbed the best was the whole mashed blueberry. And I was like, oh, how about that? It's much more enjoyable too.
Right. You use the word synergy. I think that puts the whole thing together, right? We have to have the whole picture, right? That's where everything's working together like a symphony.
Yes. Yeah. So, berries, turmeric, cruciferous vegetables. So these are the cabbage family, kale, broccoli, arugula, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. All of these vegetables have other types of these, we call them bioactive compounds. They help with, they're very anti-inflammatory. They help reduce any types of exposures that we might have. They upregulate enzymes in our liver that help to get rid of any kinds of, maybe chemical exposures or either metabolic byproducts in the body. They're also delicious. They're great for brain health. They're good for bone health. They're good for heart health. And they're very enjoyable as well. So the more we can eat plant-based foods. This is something, if you're familiar with Dr. Mishley's work and the Parkinson's Pro Diet, the number one food on the list is plant-based foods. And you might expect, of course, the dietitian is going to say, eat more fruits and vegetables, and everyone roll their eyes. Of course, I know that. But, eating these plants, this is where we get that synergistic effect, and not only protecting our brain, supporting our gut, supporting our heart, supporting our bones, like the whole system.
So did you say if you eat some of these foods, it will actually reduce chemical exposure? Is that really?
Not well, it can help our bodies to eliminate it. It upregulates the organs of some of the organs of elimination, especially the liver.
So interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. That you can
Yeah,
actually do something
there's
about
been studies looking at like arugula, watercress, other types of cruciferous vegetables, and people who have been exposed to chemicals or even like cigarette smoke, things like that, and they can find an increased excretion in their urine.
We kind of have to change our psyche and think, okay, I don't have to take this pill. I can eat a really delicious green salad, you know,
Yes.
with some, yeah. So that brings me to that protein idea. What are some recommendations to ensure that we get adequate protein, but if someone's eating the low protein due to their medication interaction, what's the story with that? How should we handle our protein and the timing with the medication?
Yeah, protein is so important, especially in the aging process. It's important for our immune system. It's important to maintain muscle mass and strength. It's important for making neurotransmitters, dopamine and such. So it's really important, but it's a balancing act. And so it is quite individual. Some people are pretty sensitive to taking protein around the time of their medications. And so it is something that people need to be attuned to inside their own body. I think that if we're looking at adequacy of protein, I think spreading it out throughout the day is important. And most of the time, there are some studies looking at this, and some of them are saying, in the range of like 5 to 10 grams per meal might be a beneficial range. If you're really not sure, you can go on the lower end. But one of the things that's challenging in terms of protein research is that we know that it's difficult to absorb more than about 30 or so grams of protein at a sitting. And so if you're waiting until the end of the day and you're eating, say, 60 grams of protein, you're not going to get the full benefit of that. So it is important to spread it out a little bit more and try to figure out a way to eat that protein so that you're not having off times. A couple of ideas around that, and some of this is information from Dr. Mishley, and I've learned from working alongside of her and the positive results that she's getting, is that if you can wait at least 30 minutes after taking your medication and you can feel that the flow is happening that you're feeling on, that would be a good time to have protein. Also during the day, making sure that you have more easily digestible protein. So what the type of protein that you eat and what you eat it with can make a big difference. So for instance, if you eat some really fatty type of protein and have also, some other high fat food with it, like if you eat a lot of fat and protein at the same time, that really slows down your digestion. And we know that digestion can be slower in Parkinson's. So we want to have more maybe plant-based proteins that are easier to digest a little bit faster. Sometimes people might even do something like a smoothie or something pureed or something well cooked. That's going to be a bit easier to digest as well. So
what would that protein be? What would that protein be? Like, for example, would that be sardines? Would that be beans? What would that be?
Yeah. So some of the proteins that would be easier to digest would be more of the plant-based proteins. So legumes, nuts and seeds, tofu, soy products, those are very anti-inflammatory. There's a new product called PumFu, which I think is pretty interesting. It's like, if you're not eating tofu, don't like tofu, it's a kind of a tofu product made out of pumpkin seeds, which is really interesting.
What's it called? Tofu?
PumFu, PUMFU. It's green. It's green. It's really beautiful. So yeah, more of the plant-based proteins. You could even have things like quinoa and sunflower seeds could be a really great option as well.
Are we getting any questions from the outside? I think we have one waiting, but we'll hold off on that one. Okay.
I can say one more thing about protein as well. That one of the things that Dr. Mishley often recommends, and there's some evidence to support this, is that having a little bit of acid with your medication might help with the absorption of the medication. So Cinnamate, Raitari, the levodopa, carbidopa, it absorbs a little bit better with acid. And sometimes as people are aging or with Parkinson's, there can be lower stomach acid, which can affect how quickly the medication absorbs. And so having the medication with a little lemon juice or a little bit of like apple cider vinegar and water, vitamin C, these types of things might help the absorption a little bit faster.
You take your medicine and you drink a glass of lemon and water or something like that, and then, that's a great idea. That's a very helpful, okay, so can these foods actually manage the side effects in Parkinson's? Like fatigue, constipation, nausea, depression? Can the food, dyskinesia, tremors, is this really, can the food help?
Well, there are definitely ways that foods can help manage side effects and symptoms. So you started with some digestive symptoms. If people are having constipation, there are ways that foods can help with constipation. And also, as a holistic dietitian, I think about lifestyle factors too. One of the things I talk about a lot in my classes for digestion are the 4 Fs. And one of them is more of a phonic F. So that's fiber, fluid, physical activity, that's the phonic F, and flora.
What was the second one? What was the second one?
It's fiber, fluid, so staying well hydrated, physical activity, so moving your body helps with peristalsis, and then flora, so probiotic bacteria, like eating fermented foods. So those are some ways. So that's a way, those are some very specific ways that foods can manage side effects. When it comes to things like depression, omega-3 fatty acids, those are also very neuroprotective. So that's helpful for Parkinson's. And there's really good research showing that eating fish, which is also on the Parkinson's Pro diet, and also really supportive for getting those omega-3s that help with depression, making sure that you have adequate B vitamins and magnesium. I would say taking a multivitamin is probably a good idea. Whenever you're considering taking dietary supplements, it's a good idea to just double check to make sure that there's no interactions or anything that are going to be happening with you personally and with the medications that you're taking. Multivitamins tend to be pretty safe for most people, but you certainly don't want them with iron, so make sure it's an iron-free. But those are other, I know we were talking about foods and this is a dietary supplement, but there are many foods that contain, magnesium and B vitamins as well, like whole grains, which are on the Pro PD diet, eating leafy greens, which are high in magnesium. And one of my favorites is hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are a great source of plant protein. They're also really high in omega-3s, and they're a great source of magnesium.
You eat that ground? Is that a ground hemp? Can you grind them? They're very nutty tasting, right?
Yeah, they're super soft. You don't need to grind them. You can you can add them if you're eating oats, if you're making smoothies. You can put them in if you're having a grain, you can just kind of mix them in as a pilaf. You can throw them into, like if you have any type of yogurt or like a dairy-free yogurt or something, you can toss those in there if you make some sort of a parfait, or if you have oatmeal, or if you have granola, anything like that. You can even just pop them in your mouth. They're very soft and easy to eat.
One of the things that you told me is that you're not just a nutrition educator, you're a nutrition counselor. And I think we all need those coaches, and just talk to us a little bit about your nutrition counseling and where you go with that and how you help people.
Yeah, I often will talk about things using analogies. And the analogy I would use is, say you had a garden and you wanted to have someone help you with the garden design. So they might come out and say, okay, well, let's put these plants here and these will balance each other and this will help with pests and bites. They'll give you sort of the layout, and then they might give you that design and say, okay, here you go. This is my recommendation for your yard. And you might take a look at it and go, I have no idea where to start. And so that first part is the education, but the counseling part is, all right, let's help you figure out how you're going to do this, how it's going to fit into your day-to-day. What are you going to start with? Let's break it down into small pieces. What are the barriers? What do you need help with? really taking a look at how you individually can be successful with making health behavior change. It's not easy to make changes, especially if you feel, last show that you all did, you were talking about what helps to keep you motivated. And I think that's a big piece in counseling, is trying to help people feel motivated, feel determined. I like to help people with consistency. I think being consistent is one of the most powerful ways to
I was going
change.
to say, you could get motivated to make these changes, and then you could start, and you could be doing great for 3 days, and all of a sudden you want to have some sugar or ice cream or something like that. Mm-hmm. And when you talked about the consistency, but you also said, you can't be rigid. Anything rigid breaks. And I thought that was an incredible thing that you said. You have to be flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so managing something long-term, most people at first might approach it with fear, anxiety, not really understanding where the boundaries are, not really understanding what this new normal is for them. And then once you start living with it for a while, then you start sort of looking for where those boundaries are. You might test those boundaries. You might try to see, how you can authentically live your life in a way that feels fulfilling, but that also, hopefully, you're still supporting yourself. And so that's where talking to somebody who can help with counseling. So when I say I'm a nutrition counselor, I'm not going into like significant relationships and how those impact your life. I'm really looking at how the different aspects of your life are affecting how you're making your food choices and how to support people with that. So managing this long term is the goal, in a way that I really think that anybody with a chronic condition isn't wanting to be defined by that. They want to live with it in a way that, yes, there's something they have to manage, but how do you have that fulfilling life so that it's just a part of who you are and not a major part?
I see the time is, we have 5 more minutes, and I am just overwhelmed by how much information you have for us, and how great we'll be able to implement this and learn from you. So just go over the course list so everybody hears what we're going to be doing. It's going to be 6 Mondays starting October 24th through November 28th. There'll be 90-minute sessions. So Kelly, just tell everybody a little bit about the course and how we're going to do that.
Yeah, this has been a brainstorm between Susan and I, and so we are actually open to feedback. It's not all set in stone, but these are our ideas so far. And so it is this class could be a great companion to the PD school or the Parkinson's school that Dr. Lori Mishley has put together. So I don't know if people have watched that, but it's an incredible class series about Parkinson's and how to manage that, and dietary and lifestyle factors. She doesn't really go into the details of the diet, and so that's where I thought a class like this could be helpful. So with class 1, we want to talk about the research that Dr. Mishley has done and other people have done on different types of dietary patterns that are helpful for neuroprotection and also slowing the progression of Parkinson's. And so we'll do that, but I want to make this really actionable. So giving us a little extra time to talk about how do you actually implement this? So we can talk about the garden plan, but then how do you actually plant the plants? And I like the analogy of the plants because we will be talking about plant-based diets, which tend to be very protective. But we can share recipes, tips, things like that, just so people feel supported. The second class would be about anti-inflammatory diet and lifestyle. So this is a really popular thing, and so we can talk about that as well. Did you want to jump in?
Wait, before you go on to the course, I see Alex is here and he wants to ask a question. You want to unmute Alex, and then we'll get back to the course.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. We've been talking a lot about nutrition and what to eat. I'm curious to know what your research shows about fasting in times of not eating.
Yes, actually, I was prepared for that because that's such a popular topic of research. It's something that's really interesting to me, and I feel like it could be a long conversation, but I'll try to make it as succinct as possible, that there's lots of different ways to do it. And one of the things that's really common in Parkinson's is that sometimes people can get malnourished, especially if you're if you're modifying how you're eating protein, and sometimes people might have increased calorie needs because of tremor and things like that, and contractions, and you're basically burning more calories. So we have to do it with more awareness. Fasting can reduce inflammation. It can be neuroprotective. It can also decrease some hormones like insulin, which are known to be can be inflammatory in the brain. And so my recommendation would be to do about 12 to 13 hours. I wouldn't recommend, some people are doing 16 hours and longer. I would say just a fast overnight, like a 12 or 13 hours. But also focusing on how you nourish yourself during the day. So making sure you're eating those bioactive compounds, those plant-based foods, those anti-inflammatory foods. I think that combination is really powerful.
Great. Oh,
Thank you, Kelly. Let's just pick up the
description of the class? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were, so the pro-PD foods, the anti-inflammatory eating. Class 3 would be all about gut health. So we'll talk more about those 4 Fs and different ways that we can support our gut, because we know there's a strong connection between the gut and the brain. And then class 4 would be about sugar cravings. That's something that's really common in Parkinson's. So how do you help support yourself with eating patterns and habits and such to help reduce sugar? Because that can be pro-inflammatory if it's out of balance. Class 5 will be about dietary supplements. So looking at some of the different dietary supplements that people might take, how to ensure safety. And then class 6 will be about staying the course, about that motivation. So looking at, how do you maintain this long-term? How do you stay consistent so you can have the best results?
Thank you so much, Kelly. We have 1 more minute. I just want to tell everybody we'll have more information about our nutrition course at our August 14th event here in Rockland County at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Suffern, Airmont, which I hope everybody local will be able to come. It's going to be amazing. So we will, Kelly will have her information there. We'll have an exhibit table. We'll have an exhibitor section. We'll have about 15 different exhibitors, and then we will have fantastic food, needless to say, and a roundtable discussion. So right now, the music for our radio show would be coming in. It's just breathe. It's a lot of good rhythm. And next month, we're gonna bring a lot of our speakers on from the August 14th event, and you'll hear all about it. It's going to be, I think, Tuesday, August 10th. Yeah. And I hope you'll all join us there next month. You'll hear about the event. And Kelly, we hope you'll come back and talk to us again.
It would be my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
And it's AM 1700 WRCR Haverstraw. World and National News is up next.